Back now with Politics in Color and politicsincolor.com. Here live from the RNC in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm Jonathan Clark, joined by Jonathan Clark with Brian Jenkins. And we're joined now by Morgonn Michael, who's the Turning Point contributor and Gen Z political commentator. Yes. Glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be able to represent Turning Point USA and Gen Zers across the country.
Gen Z.
Let's talk about what Turning Point does for the Republican Party. You're reaching out to younger voters.
Yes, I mean, that is our mission. We are the largest student nonprofit in the country. We have over 1,000 high school and college chapters, near 2,000, and we are the boots on the ground initiative of spreading conservative values across the country to actually instill America First values into the next generation.
Gen Z, let's go, before we even go a little bit further, let's talk about what age range we're talking about here. All right, confession, I'm Gen X.
Yeah.
And you're...
I'm Grandpa over here.
You're Grandpa, Gen Grandpa. So Gen Grandpa, Gen X, and Gen Z. Yep. So Gen X, I know, I just made it in, right past the baby boomers, 1965.
Yep.
Gen Z.
Gen Z's cutoff, I think, is 1997. We're really looking at the 18 to 24 range, though, right now, I think is the most prevalent to look at going into the election cycle, because there's 41 million eligible voters in Gen Z going into the 2024 election. I think I'm one of the youngest people here at the RNC, actually representing my generation, which is super cool to be able to be here and be a voice of our generation, arguably one of the largest voting blocs going in. And so I'm just here to spread conservative values and really be a representation that, our entire generation isn't completely lost. And when you look at the generational gaps, I think when you take a look at social media, that's where Gen Z is getting their political news and information from. So we really have to be here being the ones to provide an alternative narrative to what they're being fed in college campuses, what they're learning in high schools, facing indoctrination, and that's what Turning Point USA is all about.
Let me ask you this from a standpoint of the baby boomers, because we're from like the Ronald Reagan generation. That party of that day is nothing like the Republican Party of today.
Right.
So how do you approach young people with the idea of, hey, come join the party? What incentive do you give? What do you tell them about the future?
I mean, if you look at statistics, 18 to 24-year-olds for the first time are trending in a conservative direction. And the only ones that are falling behind, I will say, are women. Women are the ones that trend in the more liberal direction. And I think that that's mostly because of the feminist movement. So we really have to talk about those social issues that are in a more policy-focused way that more moderates can swing to the right. And I will also say that I go out on the street and I talk to college students across the country every single week, and the biggest issue that I hear that's facing our generation is political division, social media, and the issues that they care most about outside of the social issues is things like inflation. Because a lot of these college students are graduating from college, they can't get a job, they have no money in the bank, and they're living at home now more than ever because they can't afford an apartment on their own and they can't afford to eat food or fill up their gas tanks. So when you actually tangibly show Gen Z and even millennials of, you guys can't afford what we used to be able to afford. You're not going to be able to own a house. You're not going to have any money in your retirement accounts. Look at the national debt, Social Security, and more of these political issues. It really opens their eyes to the truth of what's going on within our government and shows them that which direction they really need to vote, and encouraging them to do that.
In what way? Oh, no, go ahead.
Well,
go ahead.
I want to get to one question
Okay.
for a female of your age.
Yeah.
And this is something that one of my daughters and I had a conversation about when it came up. Former President Trump, who's your candidate now for president, made the comment, grab them by the, and I won't get into that.
Yeah.
But my daughter came to me and said, oh, that's never happened to me before. How could you? And we got into this whole discussion. And I talked to folks at the convention about that one issue, not policy, because some of his policies, admittedly, were good for America. But I'm talking about the man, not the policy. Sure. And how do you get past that, especially as a woman?
Right.
How do you get past that?
It's a big issue that I've seen for a lot of women, like particularly, that are more bothered by, mean tweets, things that have been said in the past. But I think, look at his vice president pick, J.D. Vance. He's 39 years old. He used to be a never Trumper. He did not support President Trump, and now he is standing by his side and is Team America. And it shows that people change, and it shows that people change their minds. And I think, look at the policies that he did pass in America. Look at his track record of how he made our job market better. Our economy was thriving. Our border was closed down. America was thriving. And then look at the destruction that has happened over the last 4 years in our country. And you really have to beat him with the facts. I understand people's personalities aren't necessarily favorable for everybody, but I'd much rather have a man in office who is successful and can prove America values and put conservative and American values first.
You're 24 years old.
Yep.
Usually when I think of people in their 20s, and customarily, traditionally, when you've had people in your age bracket, these tend to be the folks who push the bounds of what's possible. Your set of folks right now, you're the believers. You're the folks who believe that anything can be done. And some of that has tended to require, and I hate this because it's so cliche, thinking out of the box, because you've got the capacity to do that at that age. One of the other things that I think is the hallmarks of being in the youthful generation, being the young adults, is that they think in a way that is hopeful.
Right.
They have hope for the future. They think that anything is possible. But the candidate that you're supporting right now never mentions anything, and I'm careful about. I want to be careful about using that term "never," because inevitably someone will say that will provide an example of something other than never, but rarely speaks about hope. Very often we hear what's terrible about this country, why this country is a hellscape, and why this country is going to be a bloodbath, but doesn't that run contrary to the beliefs of people your age? Don't you want to hear a more inviting and inclusive and hopeful and joyful message than the one that currently is coming out of from your standard bearer?
I mean, there's two sides to every coin, and if you look at the state of our country right now, what is President Trump saying that isn't true? And I think that a lot of people in our country need to wake up to the issues that are happening. We've had millions of illegal immigrants flooding into the southern border. 85,000 children went missing under the Biden administration. And if we're not talking about the issues that are going on into our country and exposing what is happening, especially to my generation, and the effects that is going to have when I have my future children, what's going on with the public education system, those are things that need to be talked about. And I hear you, yes, it would be lovely to just talk about how great America is, which I believe we are the greatest country in the world. We have the land of opportunity. There's no other country that has more freedoms than we do here. We are inclusive. We're a melting pot. We accept immigrants. My own mother is an immigrant. And so I think that's the beauty of America, is we need to, yes, talk about the values that we hold and upholding the Constitution and continue to push forward in this election, but we also need to highlight and showcase what else is going on in our country, because a lot of people have no idea the ruin that really our country has turned into in some aspects.
Now you're sounding a little Trumpian there. You talk about the ruin of America, but you said too, this is the greatest nation in the world. So it can't be that much ruin.
It is, but
there's a lot to celebrate about America.
There is a lot.
Let me ask you this.
I will say,
if I say I'm MAGA, my America's great already, can we start there? We can both put on purple hats and say, yeah, our country's great. Let's work on fixing what's wrong with it, rather than shooting arrows at each other. You're wearing red or I'm blue or whatever it is. Yeah. But it seems to me the younger generation and Turning Point's reaching out to folks. And of course, you got in the next 10, 15 years a whole changing demographic of America. So is Turning Point thinking about that in terms of your outreach to voters of color, young people of color, that you're saying to them, because you guys are the generation of hey, I don't care who you are. I just want you. I want us shooting in the same direction when the war comes.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, my mother's an immigrant and came here legally, which I am a very proud second-generation American. And Turning Point USA, we actually are with Blexit, the Black Exit, which is owned and was created by Candace Owens. So we do a lot of work with Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk, which are two of our main spokespeople at Turning Point USA and Blexit. And we just had our Black Leadership Summit, and we also had a Blexit Liberation Tour. So we are out there getting people registered to vote, getting them amped and ready for the next election, and showing, I know some of our other contributors, we have Stephen Davis, known as MAGA Hulk, Anthony Watson, a former Olympian, we have Topher, famous musician, all of who are conservative, black voices getting out in our country. And I don't really think it's a matter of coming to the middle. Like you said, my America is already great. Sure, I think a lot of people can believe that America is already great, like I do, but there is still some serious reform that needs to happen. I mean, look at the attack of the First Amendment, freedom of speech and censorship that we face all the time online, whether you're left or the right. Second Amendment, you have red flag laws, certain things about that. The Supreme Court needs some reform. I think there's always room for change and adjustment. That's why we have our Senate, and that's why we have the House of Representatives in the system that we do. And that's the beauty of America. We get to vote.
So many things we can have a discussion for ages
I know,
about.
forever.
But thank you very much for joining us. We always love to have that young folks perspective because you're tomorrow.
We are tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.